Hello and welcome to Northwest Knitting. My name is Kathy and this is my knitting podcast where I like to talk about my knitting projects, yarns that I love, and my journey toward making more sustainable clothing. I am coming to you from Eugene, Oregon in the Willamette Valley, and you can find me on Instagram and on Ravelry as Northwest Knitting. If you are new here, welcome. I hope you find something of interest. And if you're coming back, thank you so much. I really appreciate your watching and participating here with me. I really love it. I have been hearing a lot of people talking about giving up some of the social media platforms, mostly because of who owns them and is making money from them. But right now, I feel like I have good communities on both Instagram and I do a private one on Facebook. So I just think right now I'm going to keep those. But if you have a new platform and you're enjoying it, I'd love to hear about it. Right now, my favorite is Instagram because I love to look at the new patterns coming out and see what people are doing all around the world. And I think we really need community right now in light of all the things that are happening in our country, and they will be affecting people around the world. So it just seems like a hard time to be breaking up community. And so at least for right now, I'll be staying with, mostly as far as you're concerned, Instagram and YouTube. So I'll be talking about the usual things today, what I've made, what I'm working on, and a few books will be mentioned along the way. So what I'm wearing right now is a design by Albina McLaughlin. It is called LOMST, Looking Over My Shoulder Tank. And I talked to you about it quite a bit last week. She gives you two options for the shoulders. I chose the classic. I modified the neck. She has a folded over neck and also a tall neck, and this yarn was feeling very thick to me, so I went with just an ordinary crew, and maybe I made it just a little longer than I might normally do, and it feels really good and warm, so I'm happy with that. The other modification is I made it into a tunic length. I'm going to go way back so you can see that it's kind of mid-thigh, and I guess I could have made it just a little longer, but it feels really good to me. I might do one sometime in the next year or so where I make it almost more jumper length, but this is where I was going with this one. And I put a lot of ease down here and almost no ease up here. And as you can see, I added pockets with my little contrasting color in there. And that was really fun. Really enjoyed the pockets. Okay, I think I'm okay back there. I think I mentioned last time, but the yarn I'm using is a Studio Donegal Aran Tweed, and I got this in Ireland 2 years ago after a tour of Donegal Yarns, and I talk about that in episode 22. So if you wanted to go back and hear me talk about this yarn and our trip, that is the place. On the tag, they call this yarn 100% pure new wool. And what I was told at the mill was that they do use a very large percentage of their yarn is from Australia, and I think also possibly New Zealand. And they would like to use more and more Irish wool. But at the time I was there, they said most of the Irish wool was too scratchy or not suitable for garments. Since then, there's been changes afoot in Ireland. I know Carol Feller has a wool called Blasta that is something like 50% Irish wool, which is unusual. And also the Galway wool is really being actively promoted. So I don't mention those in the Back from Ireland podcast, but those are things you could explore. Anyway, I did see a lot of knitted sweaters and shawls in these Tweedy yarns from Donegal, and I just really wanted to make them. I didn't buy any. I just saw them and went, I want to make those. And I would love to still make something more cabled, but for what the yarn I had, this struck me as one of my best options. So I did not plan carefully enough, got a little distracted in the store, and also the studio Donegal, soft Donegal yarn comes in, has more yarn in each skein, and I got them confused. So that's how I ended up with not quite enough for the sweater I was imagining. Let me tell you, I did have a big a discrepancy in my gauge. The pattern calls for a gauge of 20 stitches every 4 inches or 10 centimeters, which comes out to 5 stitches per inch, and I think in inches. And my swatch showed I had a gauge of about 4.25 stitches per inch, about 17 stitches every 4 inches, and that was on size 7 needles. So I was aiming for about, I'm usually aiming for about a 42 to 44 inch chest size, and to do that I had to knit a size 1, which was kind of nice because then you're just dealing with fewer stitches, and it gave me a chest of about 180 stitches across the bust. So anyway, that worked out pretty well. The only problem I ran into with this big difference in gauge was that the instructions for picking up stitches along the armholes and the neck were too generous for the size of yarn I had, and they were all too wide, and I had to do my own figuring and experimenting to get it tight enough. And I think it worked out pretty nicely on this side and the neck. I'm happy about that. The neck comes in nicely, but this one is just the tiniest bit too big, and I had already ripped it out. So at the moment, I think I'm living with it. Mostly my arms are down. I don't think most people are going to be looking under my arms to see if it's as tight and neat as it could have been. But anyway, something to keep in mind when your gauge is off, that it could also affect what you're doing as you pick up stitches. And you could see why that would be, because when I picked up stitches with my yarn, it was every 4 stitches I picked up were that was a significant amount of yardage. So anyway, it was a fun little pattern. If you're looking for a basic pattern, it has a little shoulder, saddle shoulder right here. Very straightforward. I find all her patterns to be really easy to work. She usually gives you lots of options, and this is another one. So she's really looking for more of a DK weight with that gauge of 20 stitches. It just would be really nice. You could also do fingering with a strand of mohair too. So anyway, I am real happy with this. I love the color, and I'm sure I'll be wearing it a lot. I just wanted to mention to you, since I'm on the topic, to remind you that in episode 38, I talked about this cardigan that I made into a vest, the Peary Shop cardigan by Mary Jane Mucklestone. And I also made it longer into a tunic size with the pockets added as well. And this is Let Lopey. I really like this. So I'm imagining one more of these, maybe next fall. I'll knit one more of these tunic type vests, and I would like something possibly with Let Lopey that is doesn't involve the color work. I do love the color work quite a bit. This is all Let Lopey yarn, but it's also just really nice to have a solid color to put on, especially if you're going out sometimes. So anyway, this one and this, I really think I'll be using them a lot. So anyway, there we go. Okay, the next thing is, you might have noticed my little chicken. Here we go, the emotional support chicken. She is pretty chesty, actually. I think I need to put more stuffing in here. I think she needs more up here. I have it pretty good down by the tail feathers. So I used a lot of scraps for this. For those of you who don't know, well, this has been knit so many places, and Black Cat Knitting did a whole podcast about the emotional support chicken. It's very enjoyable. And she went to the yarn store where they came up with the pattern. The pattern is by Annette Corsino of the Knitting Tree. And, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the woman at Black Cat Knitting. She designed Calypso, but I'll put the link. And she went to the Knitting Tree, which is a store down in LA, and oh, it looked like they had over 100 chickens. So there is a full tutorial. You don't even need to buy the pattern. If you look up the pattern on Ravelry, and I have the link below, there is a link to a tutorial, and it goes from the very beginning of the pattern to the end. It's over an hour. I had two places where I felt it was useful to look up the tutorial. The first one was just getting started. So what you do is you knit these tail feathers with lots of short rows. You do one side, and then you do the other side, and then you seam them together down here. But the short rows that they recommend are super easy. I always do German short rows. I always substitute German short rows, but this wrap and turn works so great. I'm no expert on short rows or wrap and turn at all, but I think I started out with a pattern by Isabel Kramer. She's German. She used German short rows. I've never bothered to learn wrap and turn, but what they use for the wrap and turn for these short rows is so easy. You just slip a stitch from slip the next stitch from the left needle as if to purl, then you bring your yarn forward and then you slip the stitch back and then you turn it around. It's just super easy. So I would say the hardest part of the pattern for me was keeping track of my short rows. You're doing short rows and then you get up here and then you add on some stitches and then short row, short row, short row. I think you add stitches here at the top, maybe not, but you do here and here. And then when you've seamed them together, they're laying out flat, and then you pick up stitches and you're knitting flat for most of the project. And then as you get up here, you start doing a lot of decreases, of course. And the head, though, is not difficult. The comb is not difficult. It's so fun. Look at that comb. I got a little of this yarn at a store where they sell used crafts. That was fun. And I have no idea what this yarn is, actually. The red. But all the rest are little scraps I had. Now this yarn, I think one reason the tail feathers were so difficult is I was using this yarn that you can see was spun to keep the locks. And let's see. Oh yeah. So here it is. I got this at a fiber festival. And I know somebody who knew the person who was selling the yarn, so that's where I always get into trouble spending money, is friends of friends or somebody I love talking to. It was Sandy Springs, and this is, she called it, it's BFL with alpaca, and she calls it lock spun. So you're definitely, when spinning it, keeping a lot of the locks out. Well, I thought it would look really cool in the chicken. But I did find it a little challenging to knit with. Definitely a lot harder than if it had been a nice smoother yarn, but it is pretty fun. So I did all the locks spun down here, and then I added in a couple rows up here, and I tried to get the locks part out. So anyway, I don't know what breed she is, but, and then I had some, this one right here is Studio Donegal, Soft Donegal, which I had quite a bit of this brown. And then I also was at a market, an outdoor market where they sell vegetables and fruit in the summer, and there were some small skeins of hand spun yarn from right in my area, and it turns out, I just looked them up, I had never heard of them. It's Lorraine Fiber Farm, And it turns out they're in Eugene, where I am. So that was fun. Lorraine Fiber Farm, sheep's wool, hand shorn, and she says, happy fleece from happy sheep, goats, and alpaca. So I'm hoping to find out more about them. So anyway, this was fun to do. It was took a lot longer than I expected. It didn't seem like it should take that long. So I think doing these locks was my hardest part, mostly because of the yarn. And then the other thing that I looked up in the tutorial was how to seam it. And I feel like some of my seaming is not fabulous. Some of this is okay. It's really a mattress. It's just the mattress stitch. I just wanted to see what they recommended. And some of mine just isn't all that smooth. But now, who's this for? There are two people of very different ages, and I haven't decided where it's going, but I'll decide soon. I don't know. I'm not sure. The problem is I'm not sure I'm ready to cast on another one very soon. So I'm sure it would just go so much faster the second time. Oh, and the other issue is I used to have a big, huge bag of stuffing. And I gave it away during COVID. I gave away a lot of my fabric, which I mentioned a long time ago, in one of my earlier podcasts. And I included this bag of stuffing, which is fine, but here I suddenly needed stuffing. And normally I'd go to Joann's, but they are still open. You've probably heard Joann's is closing all around the country, but I called. They were still open. They were packed with a lot of unhappy people trying to buy fabric, they just were. At least in Eugene, we had a store in Eugene and in Springfield, which is just over the river, and I don't know what people will do. I guess they'll go to one of the craft stores. But anyway, they did not have a lot of stuffing to choose from, and I wasn't really interested in driving all over in search of stuffing. So I ended up buying stuffing that really it was meant to be for Christmas decoration that you'd lay out on your table and have decorations on top of it to look like snow. So I'm not sure it's really the substance I want. I've been saving my little bits of yarn for stuffing, but this gal really took a lot of stuffing and I didn't have nearly enough. So anyway, it's a fun project. I think it would be a fun gift, and I do have two people in my life who are crazy about chickens, maybe three. So anyway, we'll see what happens with this baby. There she goes. Whoop. If you wanted her to stand up better, you might add something at the bottom, but I don't think that's what I'm going to be doing with it. But speaking of chickens, I read a book recently called What the Chicken Knows by Cy Montgomery, and the subtitle is A New Appreciation of the World's Most Familiar Bird. She also wrote The Soul of an Octopus, which was quite popular, and was a National Book Award finalist. So she writes quite a bit about birds and animals, and it was really delightful. So it's a very slim little book, and has all kinds of fun facts about chickens and quite a bit specifically about roosters. So if you are a chicken person, you might check that out. I have a number of people, as I've mentioned, in my life who are raising chickens. I have never done that myself, but I have some friends who have quite a bit of space, and they have maybe 6 or 7 chickens, and they also know people who have like 20 chickens for a larger family. And one of them did all these calculations to see what they spent, the cost of raising the chickens, what that would come to for a dozen eggs. And she said it was about $16 for a dozen eggs. So if you're raising chickens, I would love to hear what you think your chickens cost in terms of a dozen eggs. But I thought that was really interesting, and it might be one of the many things where we are paying a lot less because of shortcuts being made in terms of delivering a product to us. So I'm just real curious about that. Here we have not experienced a huge increase in the cost of eggs, and I don't know why that is, but I know in some places in the country there's not only shortages but a real increase. But we have, I don't know if you're from this area, let me know, but we haven't experienced a huge dramatic increase. So anyway, I did think I would have to raise chickens if I couldn't get eggs readily, because I do love them. Okay, enough about chickens. I do have one more little finished tiny little baby sweater, and this is the it's one of those little sweaters by designed by Petite Knit. It's the Ellen's Coming Home, and let's see, do I have, I do have a picture. So it comes with all these, the pattern includes all these. I have a pair of these pants going right now, and I'm almost finished in a thicker yarn. But this one, I don't remember. Let's see. I've never made the bonnet, but I've made the sweater and the pants. I'm missing a page here, but I'm making these pants in more of a DK weight, but this was, the sweater I did is sport weight, and it is one of the smallest sizes because the baby in question, the new baby, is still very tiny. So I'm going to put, I think, some light blue buttons on here. Also, I got a request. The feedback I got from the new parents is that the previous sweaters I've made that have the buttons on the side, they said too many buttons. So this one I only made 4 buttonholes, so it'll go down to about here or so with the buttons, and call it a day. This is also super lightweight yarn. It's the Queensland United, which is half wool, half cotton, and which I made many sweaters out of before I realized it was machine washable. I don't know if they came out with a different, I don't know what happened, how I missed that, but at any rate, it is machine washable. I still have quite a bit of skeins, one skein here and there, and so I'm using it for baby clothes. I talked last summer about how I felt like my tops were wearing out a little bit too quickly under the arms, and but I feel like this size sweater is not going to be worn heavily by the baby. It'll be a quick moment in time, in the blink of an eye. Okay, so I think, oh, there are so many things that I want to be making. I've just been having so many ideas. And then the weather changed and I was thinking, oh, do I really want to keep making winter things? Should I be casting on summery clothes instead? But I think with the weather shift, I'll be getting back into my woolly wool. But this one, as you know, I've been trying very hard to use up my yarn. So this was 2 years old. I had this yarn for 2 years before I knit with it. These are all scraps, and this is definitely not new to me. I've probably had it at least 8 months or so for this particular color, but anyway, I did feel like I didn't have a plan for this, so I did feel real happy that I was using up what I had and not buying any more new. So over the holiday, I had company. I don't think I mentioned this last time, but over the holiday, I had my kids came, and one of them was wearing a hat that I had made a couple years ago, and I used something like this Rowan felted tweed, and then I made a striped hat, and it was mostly with Noro, but everything was very low contrast with quite a bit of different shades of purple and maybe a little teal in there. But I saw that hat, and every time my daughter-in-law had that hat on, I kept thinking, ooh, I'd really like a sweater in those colors. So I don't know if you remember, but I made I had planned and started a mystery shawl last, I guess in the fall with Kate Davies, and decided I wasn't crazy about the shawl, but I had a lot of leftover Rowan felted tweed, and then to make the shawl, I ended up getting a little more of the Rowan felted tweed, and it's just like, oh my gosh, I mean, I just have so much of this that I would like to use up. And so I decided to make myself another Elton. Now, the Elton, I made this, I talk about it in episode 39. I'm pretty sure this episode is 42. So it wasn't that long ago that I made the Elton pullover, and here's my first version. And it's got a drop shoulder, and as you can see, the striping is, I used a sport weight. I think the pattern calls for fingering weight, and then mohair for the striping. So it's really translucent. I think you can see. And it makes just this super light, airy sweater. I use Nua Sport, Stolen Stitches Nua Sport in the Late Night Blues colorway, and I don't remember the colorway I used for this mohair. But anyway, I love it. I love the pattern. The drop shoulder feels really flattering to me. There's been a tiny bit of pilling, and I'm not sure what, how much is the mohair, but it's super comfortable and super, it was very enjoyable to knit. I wanted to make it for years, several years, and I didn't because it just seemed like a lot of crazy fingering weight knitting, but it actually was very enjoyable, and the colors were so pleasurable that I enjoyed it quite a lot. And also, I should mention, she started with a pattern. Yeah, the pelling seems to be the mohair. Anyway, the initial pattern she had was a cardigan, and it would be fun to do a cardigan. Well, when I was making the Elton, much as I enjoyed the mohair, I thought, wouldn't it, this design is so flattering, that wouldn't it be nice to make an Elton, but without mohair, with just a thinner yarn. So I ended up getting out my Rowan felted tweed, and I am making an Elton with my purple and black here. I'll just hold it a little closer so you can see. I'm just about ready to divide for the sleeves. Anyway, I did have a moment of panic. Not panic, but like I thought yesterday, do I really want this purple and black? But I decided I do. And, I'm sure some people would point out to me, not you guys, of course, but somebody might point out to me that a horizontal stripe might not be the most flattering in the color pattern in the whole world, but I can't help it. I'm going in that direction. So anyway, it starts, you start with the back, do short rows back here, and then you pick up stitches on one side to do one front, you pick them up on the other side to do the other front, and then you join the fronts, and then you join for sleeves. And I'll be, once I've got the sleeves all joined up, then I just have a whole lot of plain knitting stockinette in the round, and that'll be something. And then I can turn my attention to something else. So anyway, that is what's happening here. Very easy, very enjoyable, and we'll see what happens with that one. Oh, by the way, the colors that I used, I'm pretty sure, okay, the black is carbon, and the purpley color is called Bilberry. So there are those two. The other thing I have, which I'm not going to show you because I think I'm ripping it out, it's not very far along, is I'm still trying to knit a sweater for my husband, but it's a pullover pattern that I'm steeking, and I've just gone crazy trying to make the adjustments. I'm using somebody else's recommendations, their story of how they made their pullover into a cardigan, and I'm using that. But I keep getting confused on the issue of adding some extra stitches for symmetry in the pattern. So as soon as I figure that out, then I will get that going. But that's the other thing. It's just been a little, I don't know. Hasn't been very satisfying. So once this is settled and I can at least get that issue of the steek resolved, then I'm looking forward to casting on another sweater. So anyway, I hope you are doing well. I hope you're getting solace and comfort from your yarn, that it's feeling joyful. And I hope you'll join me again sometime soon. And so I'll close now and just say happy knitting.